The year was 2016, a Monday night in late October. It wasn't just any Monday, it was Halloween. For me, that meant a quiet night at home, studying between handing out candy. I was a college sophomore then, living with my parents in a cul-de-sac that barely got any trick-or-treaters. I'd stocked up on chocolate and sour candy anyway, thinking I'd have leftovers for weeks. My parents had gone out to a dinner party, leaving me in charge of the house and of our dog, Vato, a hyper little rat terrier who barked at anything that moved. The night started normally. Around 7, the doorbell would ring every few minutes. Vito would go nuts, I'd hand out candy, and the house would go quiet again. By 8:30, the street was dead. I cleaned up, started a new episode of the show I was watching, and ate the leftover stew my mum had left for me. It was peaceful, that kind of silence that settles in once the night's activity ends. Then at 9:30, the doorbell rang again. It startled me, not because it was loud, but because it shouldn't have been ringing at all. Trick or treating in our neighbourhood never went past 9, especially on a Monday. Vito sprinted to the front door, barking like he'd lost his mind. I muted the TV, grabbed the candy bowl just in case, and went to check. Through the frosted glass of the storm door, I saw someone standing there. At first, I thought it was another late kid, but then I noticed how tall they were, broad shoulders, unmoving. The costume was a clown. White face, red mouth, vacant plastic eyes. The mask didn't even look cheap. It looked deliberate. The clown didn't say anything. He just held up a black trick or treat bag, almost empty, and waited. My instinct was to open the door, but something about the stillness of him stopped me. He wasn't shifting or laughing or trying to joke. He was just staring. I said, through the glass, "Sorry, we're out of candy," and before he could move or say a word, I shut the inner door and locked it. I stood there listening, waiting to hear footsteps leaving. Nothing. Then the bell rang again, longer this time, louder. Vito howled. My stomach dropped. I scooped him up, turned off the living room light, and went upstairs. Maybe if it looked like nobody was home, he'd get bored and leave. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely flick off the switches. Upstairs, I shut myself in my bedroom and set Vato down. He whimpered, pawing at my leg. For a minute, everything went quiet. Then from downstairs, there was a sharp cracking sound, like metal bending or wood splitting. My mind immediately jumped to the storm door. He'd forced it. I grabbed my phone and texted my parents' group chat. Someone's at the door, dressed as a clown. I think they broke the lock. No response. I checked my messages again. Nothing. A few seconds later came a heavy, deliberate knock on the front door. It wasn't random or frantic, it was slow, like the person was trying to make a point. I froze, listening to each thud vibrate through the walls. This had to be some kind of prank. It was Halloween. Maybe one of my brother's friends. But the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. None of them would go that far. I lay down on the bed, turned on my show again, and tried to pretend nothing was happening. My heart wouldn't slow down. Every time I started to relax, I imagined footsteps on the porch or the doorbell ringing again. Then, right as I started thinking maybe it was over, the bell went off in a rapid, unbroken sequence. Ding, 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 ding. Over and over. Vito jumped and barked hysterically. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and whispered, "Stop." Like that would somehow make it stop. When it finally did, I dialed my dad, no answer. Then my mom, straight to voicemail. Finally, I called my brother. He picked up. "Check my texts," I whispered. "There's someone outside, dressed like a clown. He broke the door," he groaned. I could hear music and voices in the background. "Mia, it's Halloween. It's probably some idiot from your school." "No," I said. "He's huge. He's not talking. He's just standing there." "Then don't answer the door," he said flatly. "Ignore it. He'll get bored." "Please, I gotta go," he interrupted. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, too angry and scared to move. Eventually, the doorbell stopped again. The silence that followed felt worse than the noise had. I tried to tell myself it was over, that he was gone. I turned off the TV. The quiet in the house pressed in around me. My body finally started to relax. I remember pulling the blanket up and closing my eyes. At some point, I fell asleep. I don't know what woke me first, the growl or the feeling that something was wrong. Vato was at the foot of the bed, stiff and alert. He wasn't barking, it was this low, steady rumble. His gaze was fixed on the window. "Vito," I whispered. "Stop." He went silent but didn't move. I listened. For a moment I didn't hear anything. Then faintly came a sound I still can't forget, a soft, rhythmic thumping, like something hitting the siding of the house. Thump, scrape, thump, scrape. It was coming from directly outside my window. I froze. My room was on the second floor. There shouldn't have been anything out there. Compelled by a horrifying curiosity, I slowly got out of bed. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. The sound outside was still there, soft, rhythmic, deliberate. I didn't want to look. I really didn't, but some stupid part of my brain needed to know. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely reach the blinds. "It's just the wind," I whispered, even though I didn't believe it. "It has to be." The blinds clicked softly as I pushed one slat open, just enough to peek. I wish I hadn't. Right there, so close that the glass could have fogged from his breath, was a clown's face. That same white mask, those hollow eyes, that stretched plastic smile. It filled the window. I froze. For a second, my mind couldn't even process what I was seeing. It didn't make sense. I was on the second floor. He didn't lunge or bang. He just tilted his head slowly to one side, like a curious animal. The motion was small, controlled, and somehow worse than anything violent. That tilt, it wasn't random. It was acknowledgement. He knew I saw him. I don't remember deciding to scream. It just ripped out of me, raw and ugly. Vito bolted under the bed. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand, my fingers barely working, and sprinted out of the room without even shutting the door. My feet pounded down the hall. I slammed into my parents' bedroom so hard the door hit the wall. Then I locked it and fell backward against it, gasping. I called 911. My hands were slick with sweat slipping on the screen. When the operator answered, I could barely form words. I told her there was a man, someone in a clown mask, outside my second-story window, that he'd been at the door earlier, that he broke the storm door. I could hear how insane I sounded, but she didn't react. Her voice was calm, the same tone people use with someone about to break. She kept saying, "Officers are on their way. Stay where you are. Don't open any doors." I think I asked her to hurry a dozen times. She just kept saying, "They're coming as fast as they can." Every minute felt endless. I crouched by the far wall of the room, phone pressed to my ear, listening. Every creak in the house made me flinch. I was sure I'd hear the sound of glass shattering or the scrape of footsteps on the roof. Vito's tiny nails clicked faintly from somewhere in the hall, and I hated myself for leaving him out there, but I couldn't move. My body was locked up with fear. I didn't even realize I was crying until the operator asked me to describe what I saw. I tried to explain the mask, the lifeless eyes, the red grin, but the words came out broken. She told me to stay on the line until the officers arrived. When the red and blue lights finally flashed through the window blinds, I didn't believe it at first. I only knew it was real when I heard voices calling out from the front of the house. The operator told me it was safe to go downstairs, but I couldn't make myself do it right away. The police searched the property with flashlights, their beams cutting across the dark yard and up the side of the house. One of them came to the door to speak to me while the other walked the perimeter. My voice was shaky when I told them everything about the doorbell, the clown, the sounds, the window. I don't know how coherent it sounded. I just wanted them to see that I wasn't making it up. Then one of the officers shouted from outside, "You need to come look at this." I followed them out front, keeping behind the flashlight beam. When I saw what he was pointing at, my stomach turned. Propped against the siding, right beneath my window, was my dad's ladder, the same one that had been stored in the locked shed behind the house. The padlock on the shed was broken clean off. "He used this," the officer said quietly, climbed up to the window. That was when it sank in. He hadn't just been watching me, he was trying to get in. They found where he'd forced the latch on the storm door too. It was bent, twisted back like it had been hit hard. The officers took my statement and called my parents to tell them to come home. They said it might have been a Halloween prank gone too far, or maybe an attempted break-in, but they couldn't be sure. I didn't stay to find out. I called my friend Adam, asked if I could crash at his place. He didn't ask questions when I showed up shaking and pale at his door, with Veto under my arm. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I've really slept right since. The police never found the guy. No footprints in the yard, no fingerprints on the ladder, nothing. Just the broken lock, the bent latch, and the image burned into my brain of that clown's mask staring through the glass. Every Halloween since, I've refused to hand out candy. I don't open the door for anyone after dark. Because sometimes, when the night's quiet and the wind hits the siding just right, I swear I still hear it thump, scrape, and I remember that he's still out there somewhere. The setting was the early 1990s, and the narrator, a boy named Leo, was only about 7 or 8 years old. This particular Halloween was different. Usually my mum would walk with me and my older brother while we trick or treated, hovering a few steps behind, reminding me to say thank you, checking that my mask wasn't blocking my vision. This year she dropped me off at my friend Sean's house instead. The plan was for me, Sean, and our mutual friend, Johnny. He was a year older than us, to go together. I remember thinking it felt grown up, like I'd been promoted. Sean's home life always felt off to me. No dad around. His mom worked out of town a lot. His sister, way older, like 20, was basically the one running the place. She didn't say hi when I came over, even if I stood right there. The house had that cat smell that hits you in the hallway, and different guys came by to see his sister, not in a friendly uncle way either. My mom assumed Sean's mom would be with us because that's how it always worked in our neighborhood. That assumption died fast. Johnny was already there when I showed up, bouncing a pillow sack in his hands like a basketball. We all had one of those oversized pillowcases ready to get stupid full. It's funny I was excited, but when Sean told me nobody was coming with us, not his mum, and not his sister, I felt this quick pinch in my stomach. It went away just as fast, because the idea of going out without parents sounded like winning the lottery. I knew my mum would never have allowed it if she'd actually checked. I kept that to myself. We headed out, while it was still a little light. First hour was easy, door to door, the plastic decorations squeaking in the wind, candy piling up. A couple people asked where our parents were. Johnny jumped in with the same line each time. "They're up ahead, we're catching up." He said it like he'd practiced in the mirror. It worked every time. Since it was a Friday, we figured we'd go until our bags were bursting. We were laughing, trying to trade for the good stuff, not noticing who else was on the sidewalks or who wasn't. That part matters. After a couple hours, our bags got heavy and our arms were tired. We went back to Sean's place for a break. He threw a few frozen pizzas in the oven like it was nothing. I remember being jealous of his freedom, no one texting, no one calling to check in. Back then it felt cool. Later, I'd realise I was lucky to have parents who always wanted to know where I was. We ate pizza and a ridiculous amount of candy and watched the Nickelodeon Halloween stuff for about an hour, quoting lines like we were older than we were. Johnny's mom pulled up and he bounced out. Sean and I looked at our sacks, still with too much room left, and agreed to go back out for round 2. It was well past 8 and now it was fully dark. The crowds were gone. Porch lights were turning off one by one. We pushed a few blocks past Sean Street to find houses we hadn't hit yet. People who did answer the door made that face adults make when they want to ask where your guardian is without sounding mean. A couple said it flat out. "It's late, boys." We kept going. We turned down a quieter street, and that's when I noticed the guy a few houses behind us pushing a stroller. At first, it didn't even register as weird. Late trick or treaters, right? He kept a steady pace. We were not exactly sprinting between doors anymore, so the gap closed. Then I started hearing him, a low shushing like shh, shh, and a soft sing-song voice under it. Not loud, not for us like he was talking to the stroller. I told myself it made sense. Babies fall asleep on walks. I've seen that. Still, my shoulders got tight. By the time he came up level with us, we'd slowed down. He smiled like we were neighbours. "How's the trick or treating going, boys?" We both answered, "Good," without looking at each other, almost like we were in trouble. Then he said, "It's pretty late. I'm on my way back to my house. I can give you guys the rest of my candy." That hit us the way you'd expect. Sean glanced at me, eyes big, like we just found a cheat code. He stepped in as the talker. "What kind do you have?" the guy said. "A bunch of bags of different things." He added that he hadn't given much out, because he'd taken his daughter out for a stroll. He nodded at the stroller. There was a small grocery bag tied to one handle. The stroller's canopy was folded all the way down, so you couldn't see inside. He said, like he was proud, "She's asleep, don't want to wake her." Then he pointed up the street. "Just up this way." He started walking. We followed because free candy from a grown-up sounded legit, and because he didn't feel scary in the obvious ways. No weird breathing, no grabbing, no yelling. Just normal. As we trailed behind him, he picked up his pace a little. I noticed how empty the street was now. No other walkers, no other porch lights. Even on a Friday, this part felt wrong, like everyone had packed it in early. He asked us where we lived and what school we went to. Easy stuff. I let Sean answer. I didn't want to volunteer anything and figured he was better at lying if he needed to. A couple times, the man leaned toward the stroller and did that high, soft voice, like, "Sweetie, almost home," then turned back and smiled at us. I tried to smile back and couldn't. It looked like a family moment, but it didn't feel like one. It felt practiced. It felt like he was making sure we saw it. And with each quiet house and each step deeper into that block, the act made the silence around us louder. He stopped at a small house with the porch light still on and said, "Here we are," in that same easy voice. He pushed the stroller up the short walkway, one hand on the handle, the other patting the side like he was reassuring someone. He unlocked the front door, swung it open, and rolled the stroller inside first. He looked back at us. "Come on in," he said. Sean didn't hesitate. Free candy was the point of the night, and every adult up to then had been basically safe. I followed because I wasn't going to stand on the porch alone, and because leaving felt weirder than staying. As he went to pull the door shut, something in me jolted, and I heard my own voice before I fully decided. "Can we leave it open?" I said. He paused, then gave a small, easy smile. "Yeah, of course." He nudged the door until it caught on the stopper. The air from outside felt like a line I could still grab. He told us, "I'll be right back. I've got the bags in the kitchen," and moved away down the hall. He left the stroller 10 feet into the living room, centered like it was on display. Right away, I felt wrong standing there. The house was tidy in that way that doesn't look lived in. No TV on, no photos I remember noticing, no noise except whatever he was doing in the kitchen. I nudged Sean and whispered, "Why would he leave the candy so far away?" He didn't answer me. He looked at the stroller like it had asked him a question. He took a slow step and then another. I didn't want him to touch it, but telling him not to felt silly because the man had a sleeping baby. At least that's what we were pretending was normal. Sean reached for the canopy like he was lifting a lid on a pot. He did it carefully with 2 fingers, slow, like not to wake a baby. The fabric folded back with a small sound. He looked in. His face changed in an instant. The colour went out of it. His mouth dropped and then pinched shut. He didn't say, "Oh my God," or anything dramatic. He just turned to me, voice thin and breathless. "Let's go." He didn't wait to see if I agreed. He moved for the door at a calm walk that lasted maybe 2 steps, and then he was running, really running, and I snapped into motion after him. The door pushed wide and we were on the porch, down the steps and hitting the sidewalk. My pillow sack banged against my leg and felt like it weighed as much as me. I almost tripped. I didn't ask questions because he didn't have air to answer, and the only clear thing was his fear. We hit the pavement and a woman's voice came from the side, sharp. "Excuse me." A neighbour from 2 doors down was on her front walk, looking at us, then looking past us at the open house. She had that urgent face adults get when they think a kid is in danger and they're trying not to freak them out. She came closer fast. "Do you know that man?" she asked. I shook my head. Sean managed, "He said he had candy." And then he blurted it all the way. "There's a fake baby in the stroller." It sounded dumb and insane coming out, but the woman didn't look confused. She made a face that read as already suspicious, looking into confirmed. "Yeah," she said, low. "That man doesn't have a child." She looked at the open door and then at us, like she was calculating. "Come on," she said, and she waved us toward her driveway. I hesitated 1 second getting into a stranger's car. Right then made my brain glitch, but she was right there, and she didn't ask us to go inside her house, and she kept saying, "I'm taking you home now." So we went, because every other option was worse. She drove us straight to my place. She didn't ask for my address. I told her cross streets and landmarks, and she nodded like she knew the area. She kept her phone in her hand on speaker, thumb hovering, like she was ready to dial 911 if that guy appeared. She pulled up and didn't let us out alone. She walked us to the door and knocked hard. My mum opened it and went straight from confused to panicked in under a second. The neighbour explained fast, clear, no extra drama, just the facts. My mom put a hand on my shoulder and a hand over her mouth at the same time. I got sent to my room while the adults called the police. Through the floor vents, I could hear the words, "stroller," "no baby," followed them, and my mum's voice getting tight in that way, where she's not crying but she's close. I tried to listen for what happened after, but they kept their voices low and then sent me to brush my teeth like it was a normal night. No one told me if the guy got caught, or even if the police found the house. They said, "It's handled," and that was it. The next day my mom told me I wasn't going to Sean's again. She called his mum, and I heard the edge in her voice even through the closed door. At school, Sean and I were fine on the surface, but we didn't hang out after. You don't come back from running out of a stranger's house together. And here's the part I still think about. That man planned it. He didn't just try a random thing. He made a prop, and he practiced the lines, and he waited for 2 kids without parents to take the bait. That night is the moment I learned how simple a trap can look and how fast something normal can turn into something you have to run away from. It was late October 2022, a Saturday night marking Halloween. Halloween fell on the following Tuesday, and everyone I knew was trying to go hard that weekend. I was with my friends Kate, Shauna, and Tracy, staring at our phones like there had to be some last-minute move we'd missed. We'd spent all afternoon on costumes. It felt stupid to sit at home in them. Everything we checked was sold out, or capacity. Kate finally said screw it and posted on her Instagram and Snapchat that we were hunting for a party. I told her it was a little desperate, it was, but we didn't have anything else. Not 5 minutes later, she got a DM from a guy we kind of knew, barely sending a screenshot for a house party 1 town over. Address, start time, BYOB. And the weird rule, must bring at least 1 girl for every guy. Host was Luke. Supposedly, people we knew were going. That was enough. We met at Shauna's place to pregame. There wasn't much planning, just White Claws, a couple 4 Locos. People brought us a joke, and some tiny vodka shooters that weren't a joke by the end of it. We texted our guy friends to roll later, then called an Uber. The ride was loud and dumb in that fun way, where everyone's a little too excited. When we pulled up, the place looked perfect for a party big house. Lots of cars crammed up the street. Bass bumping from inside. 4 girls walking in always helps the vibe, and the door swung open like the night was about to take care of itself. I opened the door first and stepped into a dim space where the living room and kitchen kind of ran together. Orange lights everywhere, Halloween decor tossed around, crowded enough to feel legit, but we didn't recognize a single person, which was odd. Kate started texting our guys asking where they were. Before we figured out the layout, this older man walked up to us. 50s maybe, a little messy, but friendly too friendly. He goes, "I'm John, Luke's dad." I said, "Oh, where's Luke?" And he waved around like, "He's somewhere, you'll see him later." It didn't really answer anything. He walked us to the kitchen and pointed at these big coolers filled with ice and random cans. He kept moving around the house like he knew everyone, but every time I noticed him, he was talking to girls. He also looked like he'd been drinking for a while. We started a beer pong game against two girls who were already warmed up. In the middle of it, the guy shouts our names from the counter he'd asked them earlier, I guess, and goes, "Shots." Shauna and Tracy were like, "Okay." I said, "Can we do 4?" He laughed loud. "Yeah, sure." No limes, just plastic cups of tequila that hit way harder than I wanted. It pushed me from buzzed to actually drunk pretty fast. The whole dad at a college party pushing shots thing made my skin itch, but there was music and a game, and it was easy to tell myself it was just weird, not dangerous. He kept hovering. "What's your poison?" he asked us, like he was a bartender. Kate said vodka soda, Tracy said rum and coke, Shauna said anything fruity, and I kind of shrugged and didn't commit. He said he'd whip something up and wandered back to the kitchen. We kept playing. My phone was low, like halfway dead, so I plugged it into an outlet near the table. A few minutes later, John came back with 4 red cups balanced in his hands. "Vodka soda for you," he said, handing one to me, then passed the others around. I tasted it and slowed down, telling myself to pace because the tequila was already doing its thing. We lost the game, not a surprise. I went to grab my phone. It hadn't charged, at all. The outlet was dead, which was annoying more than anything. I was about to start asking for a different charger when our guy friends walked in. Relief. Familiar faces. We drifted toward them, said hi, did the quick costume compliments. I remember talking to Jeff something dumb about his mask. Then everything just cut. No fade, no warning. Full stop. Next thing I knew, I was in a car. It was moving. The windows blurred. Someone said my name and shook my shoulder. I tried to ask what happened, but my mouth wasn't cooperating. My stomach was off, like the room spinning drunk I've had before, but this wasn't that. It felt wrong, like my head wasn't attached right. The car stopped. Doors opened. Cold air hit. My friends were getting me upright. I could hear Kate saying, "We're here! We're here!" I tried to stand, and my knees gave a little. My vision kept washing out. I don't remember the walk to my porch. I just remember my front door, the porch light, my hand digging around for keys that someone else was already holding. One of my guy friends steadied me and kept saying, you're okay," while guiding me inside. Then they left. When I got home that night, my parents were asleep upstairs, the house totally still. I didn't even bother changing, just went straight to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, trying to piece together what happened. My head was still spinning, and my body felt heavy, like it wasn't responding right. I plugged my phone back in, praying it would actually charge this time. The screen lit up and buzzed with a few new notifications. That's when I saw the texts. They were from an unsaved number, and the first message stopped me cold. It was my name, from my own number. Then a reply from the unknown one. "John, uh-oh." I just stared at it. I must have given him my number while drunk, I thought, but the whole thing made my stomach twist. I scrolled up, there were more. During the party, one from him said, "You look so cute." Then nothing for a couple hours. And after that, "Where did my favourite girls go?" My hands started shaking as I kept scrolling. The next ones were worse. "Where are you? I'm coming to your house." "You left something here." "I'm here, can you come to the door?" Then, "Hello, are you awake?" 3 missed calls after that. All between 2 and 3 a.m. I couldn't move for a few seconds. My brain was trying to reason with it. Maybe he was just drunk. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked, but it didn't add up. The phrasing was too direct, like he actually thought he could show up. I screenshotted everything and sent them to the group chat. Shauna immediately called me, her voice panicked, asking if my doors were locked. She and Tracy were already awake, scrolling through their own messages, realizing none of them had heard from him since the party. That's when Kate joined and started explaining what I couldn't remember. Apparently, right after our guy friends showed up, I went silent. Not just drunk like blank, standing there but not really present. They said John was all over me, putting his arm around me, touching my back, trying to get me to sit down somewhere. They said it looked wrong, and I wasn't responding, so they pulled me away and told our guy friends we were leaving. They said John looked pissed, like he didn't expect them to do that. On their way out, they saw police lights flashing outside 2 cars, probably for a noise complaint, but everyone inside barely noticed. Then Shauna said something that made my blood go cold. There was no furniture. I thought she meant, like, someone had moved stuff around for the party, but she meant none. Just open rooms, a few tables for beer pong, and the kitchen counters. The entire house was empty. That's when Jeff, one of the guys with us, looked up John's number, the one he'd given to a few people to RSVP. It wasn't even a real cell number. It was a voice over IP, basically a fake, untraceable line. And if he had mine now, that meant he could easily find my address. That was when the panic really hit me. Everything started clicking into place all at once. The weird dead outlet, the fact that no one had seen Luke, the way John kept insisting on making drinks himself. It wasn't just creepy, it was deliberate. A setup. I remember standing up, closing my blinds, locking the window, even though it didn't make sense that he'd be outside. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I texted Shauna that I was calling the cops if he messaged again, but she said to wait until morning and meet up to go together. I lay there in my bed staring at my phone screen like it might light up again. Every vibration, every little buzz, I thought it was him. Around 4:30, I finally turned it off and just sat there in the dark, too afraid to sleep. Looking back now, the part that sticks with me most isn't even the text or the blackout. It's realizing how close it came to being worse. The house wasn't a real party. It was bait. Someone's dad, or maybe not even a dad at all, had built a whole fake setup just to get girls drunk and isolated. I keep thinking about how we laughed in that Uber, how we said it felt like the start of a great night. We had no idea we were walking into a trap,